What up, what up, what up? Welcome to this week's episode of Pels Pod, New Orleans Network podcast. As always, I am your host, Raphael Rattler, back from injury reserve, back to finish the season out strong. How we doing, bro?
It's all good, man. Just dealing with the issues of Cox, the great service of Cox Communications. Appreciate everybody bearing with me. But yeah, man, it's good to see you. It's good to hear from you. Good to see you, man. I'm glad you shook back. I know it was a rough week. Kind of dealing with the issues of illnesses and being a human being. But it's good to see you back. Good to see your smiling face. You hit your stride right as the Pelicans hit their stride. So it's all good over here, bro.
Yes, sir. So before we get too far on the show, we got a lot to talk about. The Pelicans went on a win streak. If you've been hiding under a rock, make sure y'all follow us on Twitter at Pels Pod. Follow us on IG at Pels Podcast. Like the episode below, and most importantly, subscribe to New Orleans Network because we got a lot of stuff coming for y'all this season. So we got an update since the last time we talked. It's been a little while. Zion update. Another 2 weeks until he's reevaluated.
Best I can do is 2 weeks.
Yeah, that would put us with about 3 games left for the Pelicans regular season. Let me ask you this question, because I heard some different, conversations. I've had some conversations with people. Like with 3 games left, let's say the Pelicans are continuing to ride high and play well. Would you be worried about throwing Zion into a lineup after not playing for 3 months and messing up any type of chemistry that the team has established? Or is it like you would rather him get the rust out before the play-in or playoffs, if the Pels get that far? Where do you kind of sit on
it? Very complicated answer. So I'm going to just say this. How many points per game does Zion average? Okay, so just go ahead and put him back in. I listen, Zion is one of those guys, obviously the most malleable superstar that we've seen is probably Kevin Durant, right? Where you could just plug him in and it doesn't seem like things are going wrong. Doesn't seem like he needs to have any kind of adjustment period. But I think the uniqueness of Zion and the way that he plays, I think it is very similar to what Brandon Ingram said. Just give him the ball and get out the way, right? When he gets back, just, give him the ball. Obviously, Brandon Ingram has taken a step, right, and gotten back to where he has gotten, and you see Trey Murphy kind of feeling his way, and getting more included in things. But I just think that Zion is so. What's up, Stu? How you doing, man? I just think that Zion is so good that you need to have him if you have any plans of making any kind of run at all, right? And we talked about how close the West is and things like that. With the West being so tight and things like and the Nuggets at the top and the Grizzlies and the Kings and teams like that, right? Though not really the blue blood programs that you think of. With it being so tight, I think that Zion can be the lynch point, right? The turning point in a conference that is up for grabs, right? And so I think you bring him back. You allow him to kind of get that rust off and get those games in, especially if the Pelicans have kind of like gotten to a place where like they're in at least a play in, right? You can't fall out of the play in. I think throw him in there, let him get his feet wet, because throwing him in there during the first round of the playoffs or in a playoff game is probably as detrimental to the team and to him as letting him play those last 3 games. So if he's ready to go those last 3 games, I say let him go, let him get his feet wet, let him get that rust off. We saw LeBron come back and kind of look rusty. You want to give these guys a chance to kind of get revved up, especially a guy like Zion.
Right. I mean, CJ talked about it in his podcast. Izzy Gutierrez asked, he was like, so what do you do with a player like that? He was like, listen, Zion's one of those guys where like you don't really gotta run plays for him. Like he's gonna score no matter if he's missed 6 months. Like he missed a whole year and a half and he started the season out like, wow. Like and so he's one of those guys, to your point, that you don't really need to scheme for. Like I'm not even saying throw him in and let him play 33 minutes. I don't care if you bring him off the bench. Like he's one of those guys, as soon as he touches the game, the floor, the game has changed. Like your defense, whatever scheme you had, throw it out the window because Zion is not on the court. So no matter how you work him back, listen, for as great as the Pelicans have been over the past week, people are going to talk about the schedule and the opponent and stuff like that. Listen, a win is a win. Look at the Mavericks. They play the Hornets twice.
Ask the Mavericks about those schedules.
A win is a win, right, at this point of the season. And with that being said, no matter what the Pelicans want to do, they're not going as far as they want to go without number one. So you've got to find a way to incorporate him back in the game. Some unfortunate news: Jose is going to be out another 3 weeks. Probably a little bit more time as he re-heals. And again, those are two of your energy players. Those are two guys that really can change a game with their momentum and the energy they bring to the team. And so again, that's something that you would rather have than not, kind of going in to the most crucial part of the year. So I want to rehash again. It feels like a long time since we talked, but like the last time we talked, we ended the show by saying, what are the 3 things that the Pelicans had to do in order to save the season? The number one thing was put defense first. That was what this team is built upon. That's what this team's role players all have in common. They all are defensive-minded guys. You got a couple guys, Trey, CJ, JV, BI, who can put the ball in the basket, but everybody else is defensive-oriented, and the only way you are going to turn the ship around is if you hung your hat on defense. Well, they've held all their opponents since then under 110 points or less and are now 6th in the NBA in defensive rating. So check number 1. Check number 2, play whoever is giving you the most dribble penetration in terms of getting downhill and getting to the basket, not just chucking up a bunch of threes. Willie Green, to his credit, he's consolidated the rotation. You know, there's no more Kyra. There's no more Jackson. No one, nothing like that. You see Najee start to get more downhill. You see the exotic layoff patch. You see the Dykeman Najee, but all in all, creating actions for other people so that Trey can go off, so that BI can go off, and so on and so forth. Check number 2. Number 3, BI has to be a superstar. Well, earlier today, he was named Western Conference Player of the Week in the Pelicans. So check number 3, right? So those are the 3 things that we said they had to do in order to set this team up for success. And those are the 3 things that they've done. And so the first person I think we really need to take a second and to credit is Willie Green. He's caught a lot of flack, man. He's caught a lot of flack over the year. And really, you know, in his defense, he's been dealt a really bad hand. Like no other coach has had to miss almost 90% of their first two seasons without their best player. And oh, by the way, in that second season, you're going to play most of the season without your second best player too. So like, it's hard for a coach like that to try to come up with the answers on the fly, try to make something work through 10-game losing streaks and this and that and the other. And so he's caught a lot of flack for a guy who's still trying to find his own ground. Like, you know, the thing that I appreciate the most about Willie Green is his humbleness. Like, he'll be like, I'm not the best coach. I'm still learning. I'm still gathering information. But the one thing he's been from the beginning is he's been consistent. He's been confident with his team. You don't see him calling people out in the media. You don't see him calling his team out in the media. He's always the first one to take the blame for when things go wrong, that, hey, we got to look ourselves in the mirror as coaches. And I think that has led to the reason why the Pelicans are now turning the table. Like, BI has talked about it. Trey's talked about it. CJ's talked about it. When they were number 1 in the West, Willie Green was like this. When they went on a 10-game losing streak, Willie Green was like this. When they were 12th in the West, Willie Green was like this. He was always kept the same composure. And I think for a young group, if you've ever been a leader of any kind, like you've ever been a coach or a mentor or a boss at work, sometimes when things are going bad, like it's easy for people to tune you out. Like people are just like, I ain't trying to hear what he got to say. This is not looking good right now. But when you're consistently the same person day in and day out, no matter how good or how bad things go, I think it's easy for especially a young group of team to flock to that. So talk to me a little bit about what you've seen from Willie Green and how you think he probably has a big testament in terms of the confidence that this team is playing with right now.
Yeah, man. I mean, listen, he has been dealt a very bad hand. And first of all, let me say this, that Willie Green has not been without fault this year. There were some rotations. We talked about like Dyson playing, and getting minutes, getting less minutes instead of like Josh Richardson and things like that. So there have been times where, he has, things on the court, right? But what you can't fault him for or blame him for. To what you said, like up identity.
Oh, I think we might have lost you there for a second. But I mean, all in all, I mean, again, we talked about it. You know, Willie Green has had his issues. He's had some personnel things that could have gone better. We'll call it that. Are you back with us?
Yeah. I'm back.
Go ahead.
Cost communications. But yeah, I like I was saying, there are a lot of things that he can be credited for as well. I think the first thing you want to talk about is trying to establish an offensive game plan and offensive identity without your two best players, right? The things that you're seeing now is a testament to Willie trying to just do it like without Zion and times without Brandon Ingram and things, right? You watch all of these teams with these offensive identities, they have the best players, right? Jokic, Giannis, Joel Embiid, Jason Tatum, like these guys are playing, and so they're able to create an identity and stick with it. With Willie Green, he's had to change it off, right? You get Point Zion, then you got Brandon Ingram, then both of those guys out, and now kind of offense, trying to initiate offense and things, and then down a little bit, and then Brandon Ingram comes back, and now Brandon Ingram. So it's just you're changing everything, and Willie Green, I think selected him as a coach is that he knows how to keep guys engaged. He knows how to keep guys, on the up and stay, like you said, that consistency allows him to keep guys' attention and let those words, kind of resonate with the team. And with so many young players, right? Again, it's very easy to get lost in the fact that this team is so young, right? And you expect so much from them because of how great Zion has shown you and how some of the great things that BI has shown you. But this team is so young, and with a young team, it's very hard to keep that young attention span, right? We know how the young generation is now. It's very hard to do that. And so credit to Willie Green for keeping those guys engaged, keeping those guys involved, and, having those guys understand that, there's a big picture in all of this, and that Western Conference is still very much open, right? Even when you're in 12th, but you're 2 games behind 6, it's very easy to teeter in one direction and say, well, we're in 12th. The Pelicans are at 12th. And then it's like you lose them. But no, they continue to scratch. They continue to claw. They hit a section of their schedule. Listen, you got to beat who's in front of you. Ask the Dallas Mavericks, like we just said. They hit a point of their time, season of their schedule where they were able to kind of feast on some younger teams, some teams that's not trying to play for anything and things. But by the time they were getting ready to play the Clippers and everything, Willie Green had gotten those guys to believe, Trey Murphy, you need to take more threes. JV get more involved, which we'll get into. And I just think that that's a credit to him because, listen, without their best 2 players, a lot of teams fold easily, right? They fold. They realize, hey, look, this is the time they lose that morale goes down. It goes down. But those guys stayed involved. They stayed there. And now BI has finally caught up to kind of where he needs to be, which we'll get into. And like you said, overall, it's just a credit to Willie Green and understanding that, when things are not working, to make that change. You see Dyson playing now. You seeing, no less Kyrie, less Jackson thing, as the playoffs, loom, you want to make sure you're making the right decisions and pushing the right buttons. And Willie Green has done that.
Right. And one of the right decisions he's made is, again, he's condensed the lineup, right? Like everybody already talks about when you get to the playoffs, you want a 9-10 man rotation. You can't be playing 12, 13, 14 guys. Like that's just not what you do.
If that many,
Right. In a playoff situation. And so, he's kind of got ahead of it, right? Like Jax was playing minutes while Larry Nance was out. JV missed some games, things like that. And all of a sudden, Jackson Billy, you can't find him unless it's at the end of the game when a blowout's been happening, which luckily you had in your favor. But all in all, you got to look at, what Willie Green has done with the second line, right? You got Larry Nance who, props to him, man, because I'm looking at him and I'm like, bruh, he ain't even like 90%. Like he like 7. Like he had a nice dunk last game, but other than that, I'm like, Larry's out there hurting. But he's doing everything he can, to keep his team in contention. And you want to give him shouts out for that because Larry makes so many winning plays and he's often in the right spot and he makes plays that don't show up, on a box score. So you want smart players in the game. We talked about when they acquired Larry Nance, how big of a get that was, just to have somebody who, has know-how and knows where to be and can often like supplement you in ways that you necessarily need when you've got a young team. And so you mentioned a little bit about Dyson. Dyson's had some ups and downs, right? Like, the ball handling and the scoring, that's going to come with him. But like every time he gets on the court, every single time, he is giving the opposing point guard hell. Like they're like, I don't want to bring the ball up against this rookie. What is this? He's taking it coast to coast, whatever it may be. And so he's always giving you something. And when you lose a guy like Jose and Kyra's a little bit young and you don't have a ball handler like in Zion, you got to trust a rookie in, most tumultuous situation. And he's been able to deliver from the defensive end, right? And then Josh Richardson. That's an acquisition that people thought, it's a salary dump because they're getting off Devontae Graham. But he's averaged 9 points, 2 steals, shoot 38% from three. That's almost exactly what you wanted from Devontae Graham. Like somebody who could come in, hit you a three every now and then, but he's giving you laser sharp defense. He's been a really good rotational player for this team. And for the fact that they got him for nothing, basically, and he's in the rotation, like that's a hell of a play for, again, a Willie Green and for the second line to really interject.
Let me just interject on Josh Richardson there. I think Josh Richardson's inclusion into the rotation and his ability to kind of like take the not the best player, but like one of your really good players, he could go guard, and sometimes he could even play that best player. I think that has a direct correlation to what we're seeing from Herb Jones, and we're going to talk about him later. But I think what you talk about Josh Richardson and what he brings, I think that's a direct correlation because Herb isn't the guy, that has to be on the best guy every single play, every single time. Of course, in, close games and at the end of games, you want him. But he's able to get a breather because Josh Richardson can take on, a Kawhi or can take on, some of these other star players that we're playing. So, that's a good point about Josh Richardson and his inclusion into the rotation and what he's brought.
Right. We've talked about it all season long. Like you look around the West and you got guys who can score up and down, was the Nuggets, was the Grizzlies, Suns, whatever it may be. But there ain't a whole lot of guys who can defend. And on any given night, the Pels can throw Herb at you. They can throw Dyson at you. They can throw Jay Rich at you. Like, they got a lot of bodies that they could put on you just to make it difficult, right? And so that's why we've always talked about this team's identity is its defense. And the fact that they've been able to turn things around on the defensive end has got to be credit to Josh Richardson. And again, we talk about Najee Marshall. You see the confidence going back. I think a little bit with Najee was, again, the way that the team all season long has been playing this way, then playing that way. Najee, we need this from you. Najee, we need that from you. We need this. And for him, it's been a lot of, okay, what do you need from me tonight? Like, am I Steph tonight? Or am I the knife tonight? Like, am I going to the basket? And I think he's just got back to being Najee, right? Just playing free, playing downhill, creating the energy, and bringing everybody else with him. And for that, again, that's the second line that, again, the Pelicans are one of the deepest. We're talking about players that are second round picks, rookies, and the 3 lottery picks, are at the end of the bench, right? And then you got, Billy, who's a EuroLeague, can't touch the court. So like you've got so many guys that on any given night, you've got somebody, right? You got somebody to give you a boost in some energy. And that's what guys have gotten back to. So again,
to that point, Brandon Ingram said it at the beginning of the season. He said, whatever we need on this roster, we have. At whatever point, at whatever time, there's there. Like they ran into, this situation where, they had a span where people were searching for themselves, right? And searching for roles and trying to find things. And, it was ugly, right? He was trying. I heard Pat Bev say the Lakers were using, he's a spoon and they were using him as a fork. And I just thought about Najee. I'm like, is a knife, but like he was also being a spoon and then a fork, and he was also being asked to be a can opener, and then like, he was asked to do a whole lot of things. And so, when you get guys into roles where they're comfortable at and where they're able to play, you get things like this 4-game winning streak.
Right. So Another thing that happened since the last time we spoke is the team had a meeting to address accountability. And so, if y'all don't check out CJ's Pull Up podcast on ESPN with Izzy every week, you really should. Because basically, to be honest with you, like he has ESPN guests, he got Perk on there, you get people in there every week. But like honestly, it's really a podcast about the Pelicans. Like a lot of it is Pelicans focus every single week, which shout out to him for recognizing the platform that he has and trying to bring notability to the Pelicans team and Pelicans franchise. And so some of the things he mentioned that happened during that meeting, Izzy brought out, he was like, look, somebody reported, and I'm not going to tell you who, which is wild to do on somebody's podcast who plays for the Pelicans. But he said that there's a lot of people within the team that will take accountability on themselves, but they won't take accountability on other people. And they won't call out other people, which I can see, right? You got a team full of nice guys. Like you got a team full of guys who bond with one another. They're not trying to ruffle your feathers just because you got a bad game. But guess what? Like on a team, you need that. Like you got to have someone calling you out, even if you're calling yourself out, you needed to hear it from somebody else too sometimes. And like the thing that I love about CJ, and I really think, again, we talk about what he brings to with the team on the court, but what he brings off the court is just so much more. Like there's just so many levels to that. Like in terms of his accountability, he was like, look, I got to get JV the ball more. I got to shoot more catch and shoots. I got to get our shooters the ball more. Like I'm taking too many shots. Like, and the fact for a guy who's been established, who makes the money that he does, who's been in the league for this amount of time, to just come out and say that, like on a pod to the world, like that's some serious self-awareness, and that's what you've seen from the team. So you've seen JB get the ball more, you've seen CJ shoot more catch and shoot shot. Like you're seeing these things, and again, we talk about all around the league. Again, if you watch the Pelicans and you're a New Orleans fan, you're probably very passionate, and so the wins and losses take you like this, and like your momentum goes as the team goes. But like if you really watch the league, not every locker room looks like this. Like, look at the Celtics. The Celtics are the number 2 team in the East, and their second best players talking about I'm just coming up showing the work. They're the number 2 team in the East. They're the number 2. Michael Porter Jr. a week ago was talking about how he wasn't in the game. They're the number 1 team in the West. So, like, you see all these teams and players coming out and speaking what they got to speak. You don't see none of that from the Pelicans. You don't see no player calling out nobody. You don't see no coach calling out nobody. You don't see no pointing fingers. Like it's all, hey, we got to fix ourselves. We know we have to work out. And again, you got to credit Willie Green. You got to credit the CJs, the Larry Nances in the locker room of getting this young team put together, right? And you and I talked about it. They're one bad quarter away and a Jabari Smith 3 over Najee from being on a 5-game win string, and people talking a lot different about the Pelicans right now. And so, again, you just got to look at like accountability meetings and stuff like that. And when they happen in a season like this, what comes out of it, the fact that they've turned things around in a big way, I think that's something you got to give credit to.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Everything you said is spot on, from CJ's accountability and having that accountability come from other people. This team is a team. This is what happens when you draft a lot of young guys, right? You see like it's like an AAU field type, right? Where you just like you're traveling and like these are your boys, right? It's not like guys who've been on a lot of teams and a lot of locker rooms and have connections to all of these other guys, and they're just kind of in your locker room. I mean, obviously CJ and JV and Larry Nance are not like that, but those guys have connections with. They've been in other locker rooms, and they these guys like Jose and Trey and Herb and Najee. All of these they know is the Pelicans, right? And the guys that are around them and the guys that they've been in the trenches with and gotten themselves out of the last year's rut and this, and starting to work themselves out of this year's rut. And so these guys have, they have relationships. They're human beings just like all the rest of us. So sometimes you need to have a guy, right? We talked about like some of the times where back in the past when Boogie tore his ACL, and after a couple of games, like AD was kind of struggling a little bit. And Boogie said he and Rondo called AD and was like, bro, what are you doing? Like, don't be sad. Like, bro, turn up. Like, you have to, like, get out of that. Stop feeling bad for yourself. And AD went on that tear. Sometimes you need to have that, right? You need to have a guy to just be like, hey, bro, like, wake up, like do what you need to do. Like, you're not this player, you're not that player. And sometimes it can be from a guy like CJ who just does it on himself, and then that allows other people to say, well, you know what, you're right, you are doing that, but I could be doing this better, right? And then that's how conversation started. You get things going, and a shout out to CJ for the things that he's brought. But this stretch that we've seen, right, is in the way that these guys have kind of dug in and kind of pushed forward. It's just a credit to the entire team. Now you have a road ahead of you that you have to start taking care of the business that's ahead, because there's a golden opportunity for you to not only make this play in, but also get further, which we'll talk about. But the you had to start at some point, right? And I think that the accountability meeting is something that, obviously they lost on the same night, right? And that's even more credit, right? You have the accountability meeting, it comes out that this meeting has happened, and then you go out and lose the way you lost to the Rockets.
Yeah.
It's very easy to have said, all right, well, that meeting was trash. It didn't mean nothing. Right. Let's shut this all down. But again, those guys took that loss, and you saw it, right? You saw those guys methodically from that second Houston Rockets game, methodically do what they were supposed to do. Get the ball to JV, get Trey Murphy open, set screens for Trey. Herb stopped shooting threes. You started seeing these guys start doing more of the things that they needed to do and be more intentional about it. And you see where they are now. So this is a credit to Willie Green. It's a credit to that locker room. And obviously there's runway and a job to be done, but it had to start somewhere. And this is an excellent start to the end of the season.
Right. I think something, again, I have no sources, so nobody quote me on this. And I actually got into a conversation with somebody on Twitter last year when I came out and said that. I said, listen, B.I. is at his best when his playmaking is on display. Listen, I know how good he can be. He's death by 1,000 cuts. He can put up 50. When he gets hot, it's special to watch. But when he's facilitating and when he's getting other people involved, like, the game is that much prettier, right? And so I think something that came out of that meeting was, B.I., you got to trust your teammates a little bit more. Because you can see when he came back from that toe, it was like, I got to bring my team back. And the way I got to do is I got to shoot my way through it, man. I gotta make sure my team knows I'm here for them. So I got to score my way through it. And to his credit, he was scoring, but the team wasn't winning, right? Like, there was a lot of turnovers. He was still trying to catch his groove a little bit. And over the last couple of weeks, like last year after the All-Star game, he averaged 7 assists per game. This year in March, he averaged 7 assists per game. Over the last 4 games, he's averaging 10 assists per game, including a career high that he had last game. So, like, when you see B.I. at his best, he's facilitating. Do you agree or disagree that, like, in order for him to be that guy, he's got to pass the ball?
Oh, absolutely. We see the best players in the game, right? The guys who are at the top of the MVP list and the guys who are at the top of their conferences. All of those guys are all multifaceted parts of the game, right? You think about Giannis and his defense, but he passes the ball. Jokic and the way he passes the ball, right? You think about Joel Embiid and the way that he does it. He may not be the passing guy, which he's a pretty good playmaker, but he does it on the defensive end. The multifaceted guys, LeBron for so many years, just being able to affect the game in multiple ways. Brandon Ingram can get 30 points in his sleep without much effort, right? When you start to pass the ball, when you start to get others involved, when you start to allow yourself to be a decoy, when you allow yourself to be a screener, when you allow yourself to make the extra pass, get the hockey assist, might not even be an assist on yours, but you made a pass to another pass. When you start to do things like that, that's when you begin to elevate. That's what took Brandon Ingram's spot he was last season into that national spotlight. Obviously, it was the leadership things, right? The getting the team, rallying the team. But when he became a multifaceted, effector of the game, when he started moving the ball and passing the ball, and now you can't triple team him and expect him to take a mid-range jumper over 3 people because he'll hit Trey Murphy or he'll hit Herb on a cut or he'll dump the ball off the JV or CJ is spotting up over there and he'll actually move the ball. You start to unlock the offense in ways that we're starting to see. And so, Brandon Ingram, you end up with games like Brandon Ingram having 30 points, CJ having 20, and Trey Murphy having 32 points. It's because they're finding him. They're getting CJ, Brandon Ingram, both of those guys can get buckets in a phone booth for days. But it's when you start to and when you start to get everybody else involved, and you make everybody else an effort on, you make everybody else a threat on the offensive end, and you be intentional with it, right? It's not something that you passing out because 4 people are on you. No, they're running plays, and Brandon Ingram one dribble hitting the next guy, and those are the type of plays. Those are winning plays that you get the accolades, you get the stats, you go get the 30 points every game. But you get 5-6 assists with that 30 points, man, and this team just raises up to another level. So absolutely, if he wants to be, the guy that he knows that he is, and that the NBA world wants him to be, this is what he needs to do. Continue to play like this. Trust the teammates, trust the pass, trust your work, trust your teammates' work, and know that they're going to come through for you and make those shots for you. So it's been really refreshing to see BI kind of get back into the things. It just, when he starts passing the ball and that ball starts moving like that, you see the joy on people's faces, right? Trey Murphy couldn't smile hard enough against the Clippers. JV is now getting involved more, feels more involved, and feels more part of the team and of the game plan. And so you see him giving more effort on the rebounding end, and it's just things like that. And Brandon Ingram is the tide that raises all boats right now. And when he plays and gets his level up to where he is and playing like this superstar, the Pelicans are a difficult team to guard and a hard team to beat.
Absolutely. And you just brought it up, right? Like, getting JV, it's like they just found out JV was on the team. Like, we talked about it 2 episodes ago. Like, maybe they need to bring JV off the bench, something to feature JV, because let's be honest, without Zion on the court, he is the second best gravitational pull on the court. He is going to cause the doubles more than any other player not named Brandon Ingram. And so you have to play through him. And to your point, when guys aren't getting the ball, especially guys who are offensive minded, and then they're forced to play like defense, which they're not good at, it's not going to look good. But what have you seen over the past week or so? He looks serviceable on defense. Guess why? He's also getting the ball on offense. And so the resurrection of JV has been, again, we're almost around Easter. Listen, the resurrection of JV has been what's able to turn this team around, right? Like, it's like the team was reminded of his purpose. All of a sudden, when the doubles are coming, JV's not shooting it over 2 people or getting a turnover because he knows the ball's going to come back to him. Early in the season, it was like, hey, if I get the ball, I got to go up with it because I might not see the ball again for 2 more quarters, right? And so now, with him being involved in the offense early and often, and again, every game is not going to be his game. Versus the Clippers game, Zubac, who's normally he has good games for Zubac, he was giving him a difficult time. But what they did, it was like, okay, we're going to play around him. And what did they do in the second half? They went right back to JV. He got back to cooking, got his double-double, right? Like, when you're able to play through your advantage, you talk about it every single week. JV is going to have an advantage 9 times out of 10. On any given night on the offensive end, he probably is going to beat whoever it is that's guarding him. So you have to get him the ball, because then when the double comes, Trey gets more open shots. BI gets more open shots. CJ gets more open shots. Like, it just comes more easily for everybody else. But when you don't give him the ball and you just allow him to get cooked on defense, then it's a whole lot of standing around the space. The floor's not spaced. Like, it just looks more clunky. So, like, talk to me, like, what does making JV a focal point of the offense really do in terms of accentuating what this team can be?
Yeah, I mean, it's simple math, right? It's a guy who is bigger than the other guy. You should probably give that guy the ball. And so you're seeing the Pelicans kind of start the game off. First play, a lot of times the first play we saw went to Herb, and it kind of was a Herb setting it up, and maybe CJ get up. But now they're intentional. They're going right to the paint to JV and establishing, hey, look, he's going to be a problem this game. You're going to have to do things to him. And, we saw, in that second Rockets game, I saw Willie Green, Brandon Ingram and CJ started to kind of stray away, right? They started to kind of like get those 3 points up, get those. And Willie Green immediately called a timeout. And I distinctly remember CJ holding it up, dropping it off the JV, and he scored. It was like, no, remember the game plan, stay focused on the game plan. Another credit to Willie Green for that timeout and making things like that. But getting the ball to JV, like you said, he is now your second best gravitational pull. And in times, during times where like Brandon Ingram, he is the gravitational pull, and he's getting guys open. And one of the things about JV is that, he is a guy, he's even kill, as far as like his mentality and the way you see on the floor, but his game is ebbs and flows with the way that the team is playing. When they're engaging him and getting him in the game, JV is a top 5, top 6, top 7 center in the league, whatever you want to call it. But when he's not, right, these are the times when you start, like you said 2 podcasts ago, we're asking, should he come off the bench for Jackson, who's not playing anymore? So, like, that, when you don't have him out there, he becomes a liability. And when you don't have him featured in the offense, he becomes a liability on defense. And what that does, it stops his effort on the boards. It stops his effort getting back on defense. And it's rightfully so, right? He's a guy, a respected veteran, an established veteran, that he has to be able to be effective. So, to see him be more effective on the ball and to be more included in the offensive game plan, it just seems like something that should have been going on. But again, one of those things is you have to recognize when things are not working, and when you do have something that can fix this. And JV has always been there. He has always been able to kind of fix that issue if you just throw him the ball. And now he's starting to get more comfortable with the guys playing through him, and he's starting to get better in his role now. Now you're starting to see him pass back out, right? After they bring the double team, and you're starting to see him pass, which we saw in previous years was a kind of an issue for him, right? Kind of passing the ball out. But now you see him getting better at that. Like you said, a little better on defense, a little better at shot contesting at the rim. Just things like that, right? He'll never be Serge Ibaka or, Jared Jackson Jr. as blocks, but you're 7 for 1. Just put your hand up at the rim. And now you're starting to see it more and starting to see a little bit more of it. So the one thing I would ask is please stop holding people on the jump balls so that you don't start off the game with a foul. I think they see it, JV. I don't think you can get away. I think it's on the scouting report now for the refs. But other than that, man, JV has been a revelation to the offense, and I don't think that it's a coincidence that they started playing through JV more and the offense is able to be unlocked.
Right, I agree. Another reason why I think the offense is being unlocked is because the real Herb Jones has finally showed up. This is the Herb that we talked about was a transcendent pick, transformational pick for a franchise. Second round pick you didn't expect to get anything of, all of a sudden is a bona fide 10-year starter. All of a sudden, Herb is becoming the best cutter on the team again. He's not just sitting in the corners waiting to shoot 3. Now, again, testament to his work. Everybody talked about Herb locking himself in the gym and practicing 3 because he knows that's what teams are going to give him. They're going to give him that. So he's like, I'm going to practice that. I'm going to practice that in this. But listen, everybody has strengths and weaknesses. Herb could practice 3s for the rest of his life starting now. He will never be Steph Curry. All right. Steph Curry will never be Hope Jones defensively if he practiced defense for the rest of his life. You have to lean on the things that you do well. And so what have you seen Herb doing well as of late? Timely cuts, creating extra possessions. Like he's always flying around doing reverse layups or getting rebounds he got no business getting in the middle of 4 guys on the defensive eye. He's only shooting the ball when it's in rhythm, when the 3 is wide open, and he's cutting to the last. He's taking a little page from Josh Hart. Anytime he's in transition, you too small, and I'm going through the best. Like that is the Herb Jones that this team fell in love with last year and that they need moving forward, because that is the Herb Jones that elevates this team. And so not only that, I think he's been better defensively, man. Like, listen, I texted you during the game. You and I were talking through the game. That defense that Herb played on Kawhi, I've never seen Kawhi look like that. I've never seen Kawhi look like that. Like, he was flustered. Like Kawhi Leonard, he was flustered. Like every time he saw, he's like, man, this dude again. Like every single time. I believe he was 1 for 8 with him, but it wasn't just Kawhi. Dame went 12 for 22, 2 from 9. Luka went 4 for 14. So like when Herb is bringing what Herb brings, you talked about it. He was the most transformational and the most important in terms of his growth from this season, this summer. You called it out. When he's playing like that, like again, there are teams in the West that can put him up. They can score a lot of points, but there ain't a lot of teams that's got a Herb Jones on it, especially with Mikal Bridges going to the Eastern Conference. And so what does Herb bring? What does Herb's refound of himself bring to this Pelicans roster down the stretch?
Absolutely. Listen, we said it to start the show off that, Herb Jones, the Pelicans team is led by their defense. Well, when your best defender is locked in, laser focused the way he is defensively, it only again is he's the tide that rises all boats on the defensive end, right? When he's locked in defensively, when he's flying all over the place, other people are energized. You have no other choice but to just run around and play defense the way that the guys are, right? The Pelicans are second in the NBA in steals per game and have been for a while. And most of it is because of Herb Jones playing in the passing lanes, right? Herb stealing the ball in inbound plays and ripping people at half court. These are the things that they need him to do. And then offensively, listen, Herb, I called him the best space filler on the team last season. And again, a testament to him. He wanted to kind of get in that 3-ball role, that 3-and-D role that everybody knows, that everybody's looking for, that everybody wants. But Herb is so good defensively that he doesn't need to be a 3-and-D player. Be a defensive menace the way that you are and fill in the gaps, right? Offensively. Get in the dunker spot. Play the baseline. Play the cuts when your best players are being double teamed. Play the cuts when JV has the ball and he could catch you on a little, like a little mini cut. Screen for Trey Murphy, right? We've seen him get Trey Murphy open in a Draymond-esque Klay Thompson, Steph Curry way, where he's setting the screen and the guy doesn't even, the defender, Trey's defender, doesn't even know Herb is there, right? He just came around a back cut and they think that Herb is chasing, to come get the ball and he's setting the screen for Trey Murphy. Trey Murphy's wide open. Herb is probably has the most basketball IQ on the team because he just knows basketball. He's just a phenomenal basketball player. And obviously his deficiency is the 3-point line. But when you can do things, ask Bruce Brown, you can find a way to be in the NBA and be really, really good, at a position without having to shoot threes. And where Herb is so good at is where the NBA is kind of lacking at right now, right? Perimeter defense. Defensive-minded players. You look up and down, right? The Kings, the Nuggets don't really have a lot of like defensive-minded guys, right? You see all of these people putting up the Mavericks, right? The Mavericks have 2 all-star and can't stop
anybody.
Yes. So when you have a guy like Herb Jones who is able to be deployed as that defensive guy, the defensive ace, it's just phenomenal. And his offensive game, the way he's kind of falling back into the game that we all saw last season and that we knew that was going to be, the turning point for the Pelicans because you needed a guy to cut. You needed a guy to fill in spaces. You needed a guy to do the dirty work offensively and defensively. Herb has come back down to that. And, it is shown, it's shown in the results. And again, I think a lot, some of it, not all of it, Herb is just, playing so much better. But Josh Richardson being able to be deployed as a guy that, Herb, go ahead and take 2 or 3 possessions off. I got, this guy right now. Go guard the second best player. That gives just little tweaks like that. Give Herb that second win in the full quarter, that second win in the opening of the third quarter, where he could come out with his hair on fire and play the Herb Jones-esque basketball that we know. So Herb, his resurgence, his going back and finding himself, has shown in the results for him individually, right? We've seen it. We've seen his stat lines and things like these are the Herb Jones stats that we look, but it's translating for a guy like Herb Jones. You don't measure him by his stats. You measure him by what did he do to contribute to this winning effort, and for that, Herb Jones always has a long list of plays like that. So Herb's and his falling back into it. You've seen it in the stats and you've seen it in the wins. And I think he needs to continue to do that. They need that.
We can't leave this pod without talking about TM3.
All right? It's trigger.
Bruh.
Fire, man. Fire.
Trey Murphy has come to life for the most part. You've been screaming about it. 8 threes a game. 8 threes a game. Yeah. Well, he's averaging 9 threes per game, actually, in the month of March, and he's shooting 47%.
Woo!
Zion hasn't been on the court in the month of March. Just letting you know. Listen, I talked about it again. It's crazy. You're using the offensive guy. I'm using the defensive guy. Your number one important guy in terms of growth was Herb Jones this summer. Mine was Trey Murphy because he has a Liam Neeson a particular set of skills that this team needs more than anything, right? His ability to shoot the ball is just rare. It's rare. Like there's no other way. We talked about it, all the guys he was being compared to coming out, like Trey Williams in Memphis, Corey Kispert. I don't want to hear none of that. The way that this guy shoots the ball, he's like a 6'10 Klay Thompson. Like no dribbles, no looking at the rim. It's going up and it's not touching nothing but the bottom of the net. Like his confidence level has risen dramatically, right? And I think it took him a little while. Again, we talk about the youth on this team. It shows in different ways. And with Trey Murphy, is like if he earlier in the season, if he missed a couple, he was a little hesitant. It was like, okay, I only want to drive now. And like if he didn't hit one early in the game, it was like, okay, I'm not gonna shoot it now. But like as of late, I don't know if it was that meeting. I don't know if it was BI coming back, because that's like his variant.
Twin.
Like I don't know if it was BI coming back, but like something clicked in Trey that, oh yeah, I need to shoot the ball. Like you and I talk about it. He's the only player on the court that once he passes half court is a green light. There's no bad shot for Trey Murphy once he passes half court. If he wants to shoot it one step past it, let it go, Trey. Like nobody's gonna be like, Trey shouldn't have shot that, right? His confidence has grown so much. You and I talking about it, bro. You are 6'10. There are not a lot of people, and you can jump out the man. You were just in the dunk contest, so you're telling me not only can you shoot the ball out the gym, but you also can jump higher than most of the people guarding you, and you're 6'10". So when you shoot and your release is up here like Brandon Ingram, there is nobody that you can see. And so those contested shots are not contested because you don't see the guy guarding you. And now he's starting to shoot that way. He's second in the NBA in made threes in March behind Steph Curry. If this guy continues to play this way, and he's getting better defensively, you see him getting steals, you see him being active. It's crazy how in basketball, if you're better on one side of the court, you tend to be better on the other side of the court. The confidence shifts from one to the other. When you're seeing that from a player like this, again, it is year 2 for both of these guys, Herb and Trey Murphy. If they can continue to ascend like this, that I don't know what you do like in starting lineups when Zion comes back, because you got Trey, you got Herb, you got CJ, you got all these. I don't know, but that's a great problem to have, because if that guy's on the court and Zion's on the court and the Western Conference Player of the Week is also on the court and CJ's on the court, I don't know what you do as a defense. You just kind of put your hands up. So what have you seen from Trey that's caused him to really just come out of his shell this season?
Trey is a walking conundrum. He is a walking conundrum because what he went into the gym to work on was putting the ball on the ground. And he is on tape blowing past people, dunking on people, posterizing people, mean staring people. He's on tape doing that. So that's something that you have to game plan for. The man is shooting what? 46% from three-point? That's a conundrum. That is a very, very difficult thing to guard because you can't play up too close on him because he's 6'10" and he will put the ball on the ground, 2 dribbles, and now you want somebody poster on Twitter or Correct. On Instagram or something like that. But you can't help off of him because I tweeted in the Clippers game, bro. Trey Murphy couldn't make the shots prettier if he walked up to the rim and just dropped it, all right on top of it. Because, they don't touch the rim. And so he is a walking conundrum. You don't know how to guard him. I know how you should guard him, but it's very hard to do that because he can dribble and put the ball on the ground. And so what Trey Murphy has done by upping his three-point attempt to unlock the offense, and I think that they have to continue featuring him and let him get those shots up. Like I said, 8 is the magic number. Don't mind you taking 10 or 11 if you want. If you're really feeling ambitious,
Especially with feeling ambitious on the court, let it go. Put
them up, Trey, because nobody else has the skill set that you have on that team. And so, what we see is electric stuff. And I think the point that you made about it being year 2 for both he and Herb is just something that gets lost in the fact that the Pelicans should be contending and the fact that the Zion is hurt and Brandon Ingram has been hurt. These guys are in year 2. There's a lot of basketball left to be played. And the last thing I'm going to say is that I think Trey Murphy has a little bit of the Mikal Bridges factor in him, where he's being
That's
asked to fill a space, right? To fill a space. He's being asked to fill a role, to do a certain thing. But I think if like you like really like made an offense through Trey, I'm not, maybe like maybe a year, next year or 2 years, I think that you could start seeing some of the stuff that you see from Mikal Bridges in Brooklyn. Obviously, you wouldn't have that with Brandon Ingram and Zion, but I think that talent that you see, that other unlocked offense from Mikal Bridges, I think Trey Murphy has a lot of that in his future.
I agree with you. So that being said, the Pels are currently in 8th. Again, you got Minnesota playing the Kings tonight, the Clippers playing tonight, Golden State playing the Pels tomorrow, the Pels playing tonight. You look at things, you say, where do things stand? So the Clippers are in 5th, Golden State's in 6th, Minnesota's in 7th, the Pels are in 8th, Lakers are in 9th, OKC's in 10th, Dallas in 11th, crazy, and Utah is in 12th. You own the tiebreaker over the Clippers, and you play them again. You're 1 game back at the Clippers. You can win the tiebreaker over Golden State, and you play them tomorrow. You can win the tiebreaker over the Timberwolves. You play them the last game of the season. You don't play the Lakers, the OKC, or Dallas, or Utah anymore, but they're all behind you. So what does that all mean? Everything's in front of the Pels, right? Everything is in front of them. If they want the 6th seed, they can go get it. They want the 5th seed, they can go get it. And so you look at the West Coast trip. Again, they started out really well by how they play versus the Clippers. You got tonight versus the Blazers. Everyone wants to say beat the teams you're supposed to beat, right? Well, I take it a step further. At this point in the season, you got to destroy the teams you're supposed to beat, because you are building something to head into the playoffs, and you are striving for something. You don't want to play in the play-in, Zion or not. You don't want to be in the play-in. So when you got teams without Dame and like without all their players, you got to beat the hell out of them, right? And then you got a game versus the Warriors where that's going to tell a lot, right? Like if you're able to somehow sneak one in Oracle, if you could somehow win that game, excuse me, I'm sorry. The chasing.
Yeah, they not in no town no more, baby.
If you can win that game, man, the Warriors they're sweating because they're like, man, look at this playing. I don't know.
It's difficult, but ask the Timberwolves. It's very possible to go in there and win. And so tonight is right, exactly. And I think part of tonight is a huge game because you want to beat the hell out the Blazers because, again, like you said, you're building to something, but you want to be able to sit BI, sit Hurd, sit Tree, exactly, so that they can go into that Hurd, into Chase Center tomorrow and be ready and be rested and not in like a late game where you shouldn't be in a tight game tonight. You should not
Hold on, Garrick. All these guys are like 23 and 24. Yeah. I don't want to hear nothing about no back-to-back. It's the go time. Like, what did BI say? Again, you got the Nuggets game on Thursday. I think that's an important one to show up to. The Pelicans have played the Nuggets very close all week long, or all season long, in wins and in losses. And so I expect that game to be close to what people do, even though the Nuggets are playing extremely good basketball. That Clippers game, when you come home, what did BI say? What do you want to tell the fans? He said, we coming. When you got the Blazers tonight, the Warriors tomorrow, you got the Nuggets on Thursday, you go back home to play the Clippers that you might be able to sneak into that 5th. Don't say we coming if you're not bringing it, right? And so you got everything in front of you if you're the Pelicans right now. You got a win streak going behind you. You got momentum at your backs. You got your star booting up in the Spirit Bomb in the tank, trying to get ready for his comeback. Like, you got everything going in your favor. Now's the time to take advantage of it. And so when you look at this week, you look at the standings, you look at everybody's got to play everybody down the stretch. What's your gut feeling? Where do you think the Pelicans land?
I think they get at least a 7 seed. I think they get at least a 7 seed. I think, you got to have some help from the Clippers losing and things like that. And the Clippers are weird where they'll lose some games.
They got a tough
win
schedule.
Some games. Yeah, they do. But they have some weird team that win some games that they shouldn't win, and then loses some games that they should win. And so I think it's difficult to kind of expect them to lose games. But I do think that, like everybody's saying, the 5th seed is there. And if you continue to win games, it's irrelevant what anybody else does. And so you have to beat these teams. So Is the 5th seed attainable? Absolutely. But I think the Pelicans will at least be a 7th seed.
I like that. I'll go one better, bro. I think they get that 6th seed. I think they figured it out. I think they figure out how they need to play, both on the defensive side as well as playing through JV, as well as sharing the ball, moving, not just standing around playing ISO ball, getting back to 0.5 mentality. I think they figured some things out. And if they so happen to get number 1 back, I don't know if they losing any more games after that. So with that being said, the game's about to tip off in a couple minutes here. What you got left for the people, guys?
Yeah, as always, sorry about these technical difficulties. Boy, Cox is going to definitely get a call from me tomorrow. But as always, follow myself at Garrick_Rattler. Follow my brother at Raphael_Rattler. Follow us on Twitter at Pels Pod, and on Instagram at Pelicans Podcast. And you never know what people are going through, so give somebody a smile today. The Pelicans they have it all in front of they're themselves. This is a good push. It's a very exciting time, to watch the Pels and be behind them. So let's see if they get it. Let's see if they get that's 5 seed, that 6 seed or whatever. And subscribe to NewOrleans.network. Go watch the game. I'm out.